Hey everyone, welcome back. If you love rare coins and history, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking about the super rare George VI 3 pence coins from 1937, 1942, and 1943. These little coins might be small, but they're packed with big stories, errors, and huge value. Let's get into it. Let's go back to the year 1936, a pretty wild time in British history. King Edward VIII had just given up the throne to marry the woman he loved, which shocked the whole country. That's when his younger brother stepped in and became King George VI. Now, George VI didn't expect to be king, but he led Britain through some of its toughest years, including World War II. And while he was making history, so was the Royal Mint, producing new coins with his face on them for the first time. One of those coins was the threepence, also known as the threepenny bit. It was small, had 12 sides, and was made from a yellowy metal called nickel brass, which replaced the older silver version. On the front, or obverse, was a portrait of King George VI. On the back, or reverse, was a design showing a crowned portcullis, kind of like a medieval gate with chains. This coin stood out not just for how it looked, but also for what came next. Let's talk about the 1937 threepence, the first year these coins were made with George VI on them. Most of the ones from this year were normal coins used in everyday life. You'd use them to buy sweets, a newspaper, or a cup of tea. But, and this is the fun part, the Royal Mint also made a small number of proof coins that year. So what's a proof coin? Well, unlike normal coins, proof coins are made just for collectors. They're struck with extra care, often more than once, to make the design super clear and shiny. They use special dyes and polished blanks, so everything looks really sharp. Think of it like the deluxe version of a regular coin. In 1937, only a few thousand of these proof threepence coins were made, so they're already rare, especially in good condition. But here's what makes some of them even more special: a few proof coins from that year had minting errors. Now, errors might sound like a bad thing, but in the world of coin collecting, they can actually make a coin more valuable. Some examples include misaligned designs, where the image is a little off-center, double strikes, where the coin was hit twice by the press, or even tiny cracks or marks that happened during minting. These small mistakes mean the coin is one of a kind, and collectors love that. So what are these coins worth today? A regular 1937 threepence that's been used a lot might only be worth a few pounds, maybe $5 to $10 if it's in decent shape. But a proof version in really good condition can sell for anywhere from $50 to $150, depending on how clean and well preserved it is. If it has a minting error, that could bump the value up even more. Some rare examples have sold for over $200, and in perfect condition, maybe even $300, but those are the exception, not the rule. So if you ever find a shiny 1937 threepence, especially one that looks extra sharp or has something unusual about it, it might be worth getting it checked by an expert. You never know, you could be holding a small but valuable piece of history in your hand. Next up, let's talk about the George VI 3 pence from 1942. This coin is a real treasure for collectors and is considered one of the most interesting coins in British history. Why? Well, because it was made during World War II, a time when everything was in short supply, including the metals needed to make coins. When the war began, there was a huge shortage of materials like copper and nickel, which were traditionally used to mint coins. This shortage caused some problems for the Royal Mint, which had to find a way to continue producing coins for everyday use, even though the regular materials were no longer available. So, the Royal Mint decided to try using a different metal alloy to keep the coin production going. Instead of the usual copper-nickel mix, they turned to a copper-zinc alloy. This new metal mix was cheaper and more readily available at the time, but it wasn't exactly what people were used to seeing on their coins. Because of this change in metal, the 1942 3-pence coin became special and rare. While most of the 1942 coins were made with the standard mix, there's a very rare variation of the 1942 3-pence that was struck using this alternative copper-zinc alloy. This is the version collectors really want because it was not common, and it adds an extra layer of history to the coin. If you look at the 1942 3 pence, you'll see the familiar portrait of King George VI, who became king after his brother, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne. George VI was the king during World War II, and his portrait is featured on many coins of that era. The design shows the king facing left, with the inscription, George VI King Emperor, around the edge, just like other coins from his time. On the back of the coin, you'll find the familiar image of a three-headed design and the 3 pence inscription, marking the value of the coin. Now, the value of the 1942 3 pence can vary quite a bit, and a big part of that is the metal it's made from. Coins struck with the copper-zinc alloy are considered much rarer than those made with the standard mix, and because of this, they can be worth much more. In fact, depending on the condition and the rarity of the alloy, a 1942 3 pence coin could be worth £10,000 or even more. That's right, what might seem like a small coin from a regular pocket could end up being worth thousands of pounds if you have the rare version. In addition to the alloy variation, another factor that makes the 1942 3 pence coin so valuable is the time period during which it was made. The Royal Mint was facing a lot of challenges in those years due to the war. Not only was there a shortage of materials, but the minting process was a lot more erratic than usual. The pressure of wartime production meant that some coins were made under unusual circumstances, and this only adds to their rarity and appeal to collectors today. Because the 1942 3 pence is linked to World War II, it also holds historical significance. The war affected nearly every aspect of life in Britain, and even something as simple as a coin became a reflection of the times. Owning a 1942 3 pence gives you a tiny piece of history that tells a story about the country's struggles and triumphs during one of the most difficult periods in history. It's not just the historical aspect that makes this coin valuable, it's also the rarity. While the Royal Mint made a good number of coins in 1942, not all of them were made with the rare alloy. So, finding a coin made with the copper-zinc mix today is like finding a hidden treasure. Coins that are in good condition, meaning they don't have a lot of scratches or wear, can be especially valuable. The better the condition, the higher the price it will likely fetch at an auction or among collectors. The 1942 3 pence is a great example of how a simple change in materials, combined with the historical context, can make a coin incredibly valuable. In fact, it's a coin that captures the spirit of wartime Britain, the resourcefulness and adaptability that people had to have in those tough times. And, because of that connection to the past, collectors today are willing to pay big money to get their hands on one. And last, but definitely not least, we come to the George VI 3 pence from 1943. If the 1942 3 pence had some interesting features due to its wartime metal, the 1943 coin takes things to a whole new level. Why is it so rare and valuable? Well, let's dive into this fascinating story. In 1943, Britain was in the middle of World War II, and like many other countries at the time, there was a huge struggle to keep the economy going and supply materials for all sorts of things, like weapons, food, and of course, money. The British government was under a lot of pressure to make sure they could still produce enough coins for everyday use, even though many materials were in short supply. But in 1943, something went terribly wrong at the Royal Mint. The Royal Mint is the place where coins are made, and it's supposed to be highly precise in its work. However, during the war, things were rushed, and mistakes happened. A huge error occurred when a batch of 1943 3 pence coins were struck on the wrong type of metal. Instead of the usual bronze, these coins were mistakenly struck on aluminum bronze planchets. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, aluminum bronze is a much lighter metal than the usual bronze used for the coins. The 1943 3 pence, with this metal error, stands out because it's so different from all the other 3 pence coins of the era. Most of the coins made during that time were struck on standard bronze, but this small batch of aluminum bronze coins was an accident. And that's what makes them so highly sought after by collectors. It's not just that the 1943 3 pence is rare, it's also tied to a very specific moment in history. The error happened at a time when the country was under immense stress due to the war, and this makes the coin even more interesting. Only a handful of these 1943 coins were struck on aluminum bronze, and even fewer are still around today. The mistake at the mint was corrected quickly, and most of the coins made in 1943 were struck on the correct metal. This means that the 1943 aluminum bronze 3 pence is extremely rare. Because there are so few of these coins in circulation, they've become highly valuable. A 1943 3 pence that was struck on the aluminum bronze metal can be worth anywhere from £15,000 to £30,000 depending on its condition. Coins in perfect condition can go for much more. In fact, one of these rare 1943 coins, in mint condition, has even sold for over £40,000 at auction. Why does it fetch such a high price? Well, for a collector, the 1943 3 pence isn't just another coin, it's like finding a hidden gem from an important part of British history. The mistake in 1943 makes this coin a true collector's treasure. It's like owning a piece of history that's connected to the struggles and triumphs of World War II. For anyone lucky enough to find one of these coins, you've got something incredibly valuable on your hands. This 1943 3 pence is definitely considered one of the holy grails of British coin collecting. It's not just rare, it's a one-of-a-kind treasure that tells a unique story about the challenges Britain faced during wartime. The 1943 aluminum bronze 3 pence coin is much more than just a piece of currency. It represents the mistakes, the history, and the incredible value that can come from a single mistake made during a time of war. This tiny coin, made in the midst of all the chaos, has become a symbol of rarity and historical significance. So, there you have it, the top 3 most expensive and ultra-rare George VI 3 pence coins from 1937, 1942, and 1943. These coins are packed with history, minting errors, and wartime challenges, making them a collector's dream. If you're lucky enough to find one, you might be holding a small fortune. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Drop a comment if you've seen any of these rare coins. Happy collecting!